working on lots of initiatives, some having to do with healthcare, some having to do with peer development, but we really see it as an important partnership for downtown and for DDD, so it's always a pleasure to come on this issue at Tulane. What I'm about to talk about is part and parcel of what the DDD is. You know, in our heart, we're an economic development agency. Our charge is to attract investment to downtown New Orleans, and we do that in a variety of ways. We do it through things like we don't cover any of this stuff. Are we doing? Okay. Let me jump in there. Our mission is to, like I said, to drive development downtown, primarily by attracting economic development, by helping economic development to occur. And in that sphere, primarily real estate-based economic development. Working with developers in order to get projects that are somewhat tenuous over the hump and built downtown. And we've had good success that I think we'll get to in a few more slides. But we can only do that by paying attention to the foundational issues of clean and safe. So we have extra police officers who work for us just downtown. We have public safety rangers, who I hope you're familiar with, who blue BDU pants, the white shirts, who hand out directions to tourists, but also action eyes for the police. I have instant radio contact with the NOPD. And then we've got folks who clean literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, throughout the year. They don't take a holiday downtown. And because we think there's no way that we can attract new investment if people don't feel safe and if downtown is not clean. In economic development, we do a lot in policy work, for instance, putting in places like the state historic tax credit that we advocated for at the state legislature. It makes it a lot more affordable to rehab old buildings downtown. Working on plans like the master plan and portions of it that have to do with downtown. Retail attraction on down the line. I mentioned the Rangers in our police detail, our cleaning services. All this adds up to some numbers that we're really proud of. Just since the storm, since Katrina, we've experienced over $3.6 billion of new investment downtown alone. That's a big number. There's not a downtown that I know of in America that has created that kind of investment downtown in the last 6 years. Some of the breakouts of that: $17 million in streetscape improvements that we've helped. We've helped to redo the facades on over 20 structures just on Canal Street alone. And so bit by bit, Canal Street it's like turning a ship, but in fact it is turning. And we think that in the area I mentioned retail before, I think we're really close to some big retail wins that are folks who have recognized that New Orleans is on the upswing and that Canal Street is a place for them to be, to take advantage of that. We've doubled the residential population downtown just in the last 8 years, which is an extraordinary figure, to 5,100 residents. Now that doesn't even include the French Quarter and surrounding neighborhoods. That's just in the CBD Warehouse District, Lafayette Square neighborhood. And one statistic that a lot of folks find maybe a little odd at first when we quote it is this 32 sidewalk cafe. They say, well, why is that important? It's important for a few reasons. One is that people are not going to eat at an outdoor cafe unless they feel safe and they feel like it's an clean environment, right? You're not going to sit in the street where there's paper blowing around in the air around you and you're afraid of being mugged at any moment. We've gone from right after the storm having 3 downtown cafes throughout all of downtown, having 32 today. I'll tell you, this is a metric that I stole directly from downtown Philadelphia. Downtown Philadelphia, when they started coming, had no downtown cafes. Now they have well over 100 cafes downtown. And any of you familiar with Philadelphia understand the transformation that's happened there in the last 15 or so years. Our economic strategy, here's something that should be welcome news to folks in this building, is focused largely on biomedical. We know that we're not a Boston, we're not San Francisco in terms of the amount of medical research, for instance, that we do. But we also know that we are the best at certain niches. Peptides, for instance, at Tulane, and sort of the crossover between ophthalmology and neurology, some of the research that's occurring at LSU. We're doing the best research in the world in some of these areas, and so we think we've got niches that we can play off of. Digital media, I think y'all are familiar with the GE announcement that happened just last week. That GE announcement is the result of years of work on the part of people like Gina Wing, the state, and us, Idea Village, to create a knowledge economy here in New Orleans. We've got lots of small companies, things like, if you're not familiar with them, look them up online. TurboSquid, which has the largest collection of online three-dimensional imagery in the world, is based in downtown New Orleans. Receivables Exchange, that sells people's receivables, I won't get into the details of that, company's receivables, based in downtown New Orleans. And iSeats, the company that creates the front and the back end web experiences, the sales experiences for companies like Delta, Air France, and others. Those are all based in New Orleans. Who would have thought that 10 years ago? But we're changing the type of economy and the type of place that New Orleans is. One of the things that the DoD recognized early on in our focus on these industries was that we had to change how people perceive New Orleans. We know that people perceive New Orleans certainly as a great place to party, but we also know that we're about a lot more than that. This building, this institution, being a great example of that. We don't tell that story nearly well enough about the intellectual capital of New Orleans and what that means for the future of this city. On the other hand, there are parts of what people know about New Orleans that we certainly want to tout a lot. Those things being the fact that New Orleans is an inspirational place. Every great Southern writer, just about, has spent time in New Orleans. Why? This goes back 150 years. Because this is a kind of place that inspires them to do great work. And our message in this brand that we're going to talk about in just a moment is that New Orleans is still that kind of place, and even more so, and not just related to literature or jazz or some of the things that people associate with New Orleans, but in fact, biomedical, digital media, arts-based businesses. So, an important I think, understanding to understand why our brand has been developed the way it is a very simple fact, and that's that economic development happens very differently today than it did 20 or certainly 40 years ago. It used to be 40 years ago, you'd go after the big company, you'd go after GE first, and then they'd bring all their employees here, and all employees would follow, right? Now, I grew up in Detroit, and certainly we know how many states across the union, how many nations have gone after the auto industry because you get the big plant, and all the suppliers, and all those high-paid jobs follow. That still works to an extent in industries like that, but we also know that the lion's share of jobs that are created in America today are created by small companies with fewer than 25 employees. For companies like that, and for people who work at those companies, place is more important than it has ever been. They won't, when I graduated from university, you'd hope to get a job with, one of the, back then I think it was still the big 8 accounting firms. I don't know what it's down to now, maybe 5. But one of the big accounting firms, or GE or Exxon or General Motors, and then what'd you do? You'd go over where the heck they told you to go, you'd set up shop, and that's where you work. The best and the brightest today don't operate that way. 62%, this is U.S. Census Bureau statistics, 62% of kids coming out of college today will choose a place to live even before they have a job. That's how important lifestyle is and quality of life to people coming out of college, but not just them. We found this across all demographics in folks in the industry line. They're going to choose wherever they want to live, and they have the confidence that they can create a job for themselves. They can create enough to get by on and eventually to be very successful. So if we're not focusing on creating the right place to attract the best and the brightest, we're going to lose the game. And I think that we've already seen the results of this post-Katrina. Maybe many of you came to Katrina because you wanted to be about rebuilding a great American city after the storm. We see that happens a lot. But once again, the place was more important in some respects than the job. Now, you can't forget the jobs. You got to have those come pretty quickly or people are going to leave. So we started to ask folks, what about place is important to you? We did something that was I think pretty groundbreaking. We used a visual preference survey, something that's been used in physical planning for quite a few years now, where you show pictures of folks and say, tell us how you like this. Rather than having to describe what you want, you show them pictures, then you know exactly what the experience is that they're reacting to. When we did that, we found that folks rated very high, sort of what we would consider to be a green style of living. I'm not going to get too much into that for this presentation. And the New Orleans branded country. The two highest ranked, the percentages you see here are the folks who rated these, basically set on a 10-point scale, 7 to 10. 7 being how, I don't remember the exact wording, but how attractive they found each of these images. So for instance, on this 62% would have rated this one between a 7 and 10 on a 10-point scale. First of all, what is a place brand then? Because you know that there are great brands out there like Coca-Cola, right? That people recognize that generally have positive associations with. Maybe unless you're in public health.
Yeah.
The idea behind a place brand is that you're actually attaching those same sort of positive feelings of some sort to a place, not to a company or not to a product. And so that's what we're trying to do. When we mention the name Downtown New Orleans, we want people to certain imagery to come into their heads. That is what we're going to talk about in just a bit. It's important because, like I said, nowadays, in terms of economic development, we're competing for the best and the brightest. It's the best and the brightest. It's not the companies that are moving America. They will create the companies that then will move America. One of the most important concepts in developing a place brand is to understand whether it's going to be strategic or organic. Strategic can be something where you're essentially trying to shape an image, a brand, like what's in Las Vegas is.
What happens
here stays here, for instance. But even that is somewhat kind of based in people's understanding of the place. We want to make sure that our brand was completely organic. Certainly it's aspirational to some extent, but the authenticity of the place and thus the brand is based on the fact that we're not trying to tell people that we're something that we're not. We're not going to tell people that we've got as much starch in our collars as Boston. We'd be a failure if we ever did that. But what we can tell people is that we can do great things here. We can do great intellectual work. At the same time, we can have a lot of fun, which is certainly part of the current brand. So place brands market the history, the quality of the place. You'll see that come through in ours. And proactively creates proper partnerships with stakeholders. And Zoey's going to talk a little more about that a little bit. So we took all this research. We hired a firm that does only place branding work called North Star Destination Strategies out of Nashville, Tennessee. We put together a branding task force that cut across every segment of Yvette Jones, as a matter of fact, from Tulane, sat on the branding task force. But we had people who own small businesses, galleries, hoteliers, plain residents. Everybody who makes up downtown was at the table talking through this branding effort. Then we had a smaller subset of a creative committee, and then a our board and our staff led by Zoey, who led the entire effort. This is our branding task force. You actually see that there at the top. And the diversity of the folks who are involved. The research findings, luckily, told us that a lot of what people want is what we have in New Orleans. They want things like the authenticity, the unique neighborhoods, the walkability. These are all things that are very much in vogue today, and it's a great starting point for our brand. Some of this I'm going to read verbatim because this is language that the consultants came up with for us. And I can tell you that having lived in New Orleans now for almost 10 years, it really hit home. I think they nailed it. They understood based on all these interviews, the one-on-one interviews, the stakeholder groups, the survey research. I think they really understand what makes New Orleans tick. What they told us is that the advantage New Orleans has over other cities in attracting online is that we not only offer them what they want, some of those things like walkability and authenticity, but we offer that intangible, that quicksilver, slippery, intangible, mysterious connection to inspiration. This is what we're selling. This is a really important point because even 20 years ago, this would be poppycock. It would be, ridiculous on its face. But today, because of how important intellectual capital is to economic development, this is what it's all about. And so if we can make people attach these concepts to New Orleans and thus make them want to do business here, live here, work here, we're over a huge hurdle in revitalizing the economy of New Orleans. So then we start toying around with this idea of New Orleans as a modern muse. You know, the concept of the muse, a lot of people associate it with inspiration, but it's also a source of intelligence too, which is something we don't talk about nearly enough in New Orleans. We also just discovered, that some of the ideas at the core of our brand need to be this understanding that in New Orleans, our creative class isn't just successful in the sense that you might be in Boston or New York and make a lot of money, but we are passionately, obsessively successful. This is a very passionate place. You see that come out at certain times of the year more than others. But on many levels, there's a complexity here that I think is important to the brand of New Orleans. On many levels, we're passionate about what we do, how we live. We form relationships as well as making money. Maybe if making money is all that's important to you, maybe New Orleans is not the place for you. We're not going to tell everybody that New Orleans is the best for them. But if relationships is important to you, like being successful, maybe this is the place. We work with our entire heart and soul. We play that way too. So we're not throwing out the fact that we love to party and all this. That's an important part of our brand. But what we're adding to that is that we're good at building businesses and intellectual capital as well. And lastly, it's one that brought a tear to my eye the first time I saw it, that we don't just live, we're absolutely walking here. And that is, I think, a core element of what keeps people in New Orleans. And whether or not they're from here originally or they've moved here. So all this then was boiled down to a single statement that had captured the entire downtown. For industries of the mind, downtown New Orleans is a collage of distinct communities and opportunities. There's absolute cultural authenticity. Makes it a muse, both a source of intelligence and creativity, and inspiration. It fires the imagination and energizes you to shape a prosperous future, both yours and the city's. Once again, a lot of folks who are here in New Orleans are here, yes, to be successful themselves, but also because they want to be about something bigger than themselves. It's something that came across clearly in the research. And so, once again, maybe if you're just interested in your own little business, your own little life, maybe this isn't the place for you. This is the place where building a community is a huge part of what all of us who stuck around after the storm are about. Because we love this place, we know this is a unique place on the face of the earth, and we want to make it the best that it possibly be. So Zoey now is going to come up and talk a little bit about how we took this brand platform and executed it across everything that we do. Because a brand can't be just in your marketing department. It's got to be in your operations department, in your finance department. Everything you do has to just ooze this brand in one way or another. And so Zoey's done a great job of helping us to execute it, so she's going to tell you a little more about that.
Right. A lot of times when people think about communications or marketing, they just think, oh, you're kind of like a decorator. You pick some great colors, you make it look fun, and you try to convince people this is what they should be using. But if you really think about it, probably a lot of what you guys do, research from a psychological standpoint, we look at what people want and what they're thinking, and we really include as many people and create a diverse group of people to really take our brand forward, create brand ambassadors per se. So as we're working with the city, we're working with residents, we're working with public safety officials, we want everybody to take what we've done and embrace it in whatever way that they, in any way that they can with their own communication efforts. So, with all that research, it took us almost a year. How does that translate to one sentence? Then how does that come to a creative side? One thing we did is when you're doing things, everybody has opinions, especially when it comes to creative. So some of the things, if you have a group of 20 coming up with a logo, you're gonna have some crazy, busy, very out there kind of artwork. So we condensed it down to 3 people downtown that basically our task force voted on. And we looked at what colors, kind of the creative class target audience, there's a psychology behind each of these colors. And we had an artist that sat on our creative committee who also used to be a Wall Street broker. So he was kind of diverse in his own right. And we looked at how orange and greens and blues are very appealing and soothing, but at the same time kind of have this connotation of a newness, a more modern edge. So even though New Orleans is very authentic, I always like to use the term vintage modern. We don't want to take away what makes us so cool and authentic from our history. We also want to clean it up a little bit, modernize it, and make it more believable to say, yes, we still have our roots, but we have new branches and new people that have really kind of come into the city and made it such a great place. But we really highlighted, one of the things we learned from our research is that neighborhoods were one of the biggest things that the creative class really focus on when they're looking for a place. So you can see throughout the brochure we'll talk about neighborhoods, we highlight them through photography, and we also, in this section, kind of show each of the 8 distinct neighborhoods of downtown. We have 4 historic neighborhoods, and it kind of gives you a picture of each one of those. Because a lot of times people will say, I live in the warehouse district. It's like, actually you live in the Lafayette Square Historic District. And so we're internally educating people about their own neighborhoods, but also letting external audiences kind of know everything we have to offer. We also did that with our downtown map. One of the things we did is kind of bubble in and highlight the key areas of each of the neighborhoods. This is where kind of the hot spots of like where all your, for example, arts district, we put, highlighted Julia Street and where all your major things are going on. It kind of keeps tourists also in that more populated area as we grow those neighborhoods. We also added the RTA street line. A lot of things about communications and marketing, I always tell people, kiss it, keep it simple, stupid. Motto that I learned in college at LSU. Is you don't have to have things busy. As long as it's clean and it's easy to understand, we just laid everything out from safety tips to important phone numbers, so it's all about connecting people and letting them know where they can get resources. And also, working with our public safety rangers. We didn't work in a vacuum. We worked with each one of our departments, each one of our stakeholders to say, what do the people want? And probably 9 times out of 10 each day, the rangers were saying, we need a streetcar line just added to our map. So just kind of listening and understanding what people's needs are and really executing those. This is one of my favorite pieces of our branding. It's so simple, but after the storm, the rangers really had a heightened role downtown. Not only did, a lot of people saw them as public safety more like hospitality rangers, but we are making more of a shift to their focus on safety. And so branding them and really letting the people around the community know that this is a ranger. That really connotates more of like an authority figure that has that connection to police officers in downtown. And really just making it pop, because a lot of times they got lost in the shuffle because people thought they were meter names. And so we spent a lot of time in focus groups with our rangers, and that's what we came up with. And so now they're getting more, they're getting recognized more as the DD rangers. Our clean
If I could
team.
just say one thing, after we initiated that, a couple of people came up to me and said, hey, I love your new ranger program. They never knew there was a ranger program until we just changed the badge to say ranger.
So that's a lot with marketing, is you really just have to.
You changed their uniforms too, they had different colors before, right? They still had-
It was the same uniform.
The only thing
just
different is the
patches.
patches. I thought it was, never mind.
But we did change our clean tee uniforms. We put the safety green on and really made them, you know, it's kind of like your unsung heroes. You know, these clean team people, 24/7 clean downtown. And so little times you know, people stop and talk to them or say thank you. And so we really wanted to kind of bring them to the forefront because they were kind of lost too, like in the landscape of downtown. And so now they're starting to get recognized, people are starting to thank them, and it's also creating conversation with people sometimes you don't have conversations with. So that's really also part of our brand. We want everybody recognized. We treasure, I don't care if you're the clean team or if you're our CEO, we strive to treat everybody the same. So I know they were very excited and they loved being in all the pictures. We got a new website. I really encourage everybody to log into downtown.com. It's a really interactive, always has fresh content. We try to change at least every other day. We're doing a better job of it. Our top 6 banners, so we feature events, news, things going on. We have a Downtown Now that contains current news, current events for the day, the weather report. We have rolling downtown and DD stats that refresh every time. I'm a soundbite person. I don't remember paragraphs, so I like things that are quick and simple, and that's all that communications is about. So a lot of times people don't know that New Orleans recently in Forbes was named one of the #2 behind Austin for jobs, but also #1 for IT jobs in the country. So we need to tell that story. We, you know, people remember those little snippets of information. We also work with GNO Inc. and their, what's the program called? Work NOLA program. To broadcast downtown job opportunities. We also received a grant to do downtown TV, which is quick snippet, 2 to 3 minute profiles, 5D camera, very beautiful artistic displays of our stakeholders downtown and what makes them cool. Like we have an artist profile, we have Westfelt Coffee, who's been here for 100-something years and a lot of times doesn't have a lot of recognition for what they do in the coffee industry. So that's a really cool feature of the website.
That's our #1 visiting feature, downtown TV.
And another really cool thing about this website is, you know, I keep saying you gotta really work with your stakeholders. This platform was created by Canary Collective. Some of y'all might know Dirty Coast or humanbeings.com, Blake Haney in town. He created our website. We also did it for New Orleans Museum of Art, New Orleans Arts Council, several other organizations around the city. So we put information on our website, it also disseminates to their platform. So now you're creating a web of over 30,000 people, whereas if you would have done it on your own, you know, you just have the constituents or visitors special to your organization. But this right here kind of outlines our place page program. We have over 500 organizations, restaurants, placed on their category as far as, you know, if it's arts and entertainment, if it's restaurants, and then you can also search it by neighborhood. So it has information and place pages for all of our stakeholders. So it's a free program. It's basically having like a mini web page within our website. And that gets pushed to our downtown app and also gets pushed to other platforms we talked about earlier. One last thing too is whose job is it anyway? A lot of times people just assume that the DD is responsible for all things downtown. So one of the things we did was something very simple, a black and white sketch of everything you may complain about downtown, and just educating people that if you have a garbage issue, that's really sanitation department of the city of New Orleans. But if you have a sidewalk stain, call the DUD clean team and we're on it. So this has also become a huge thing that our stakeholders will pin up on their court boards. So now they're starting to take the initiative proactively to help address some of their issues. Giving people tools is also another big bonus. We also created a peer-to-peer website. Another thing we found during our research is a lot of people in the creative class, they don't really trust some marketing initiatives. They feel like they're being spoken to or swayed in a certain way. And they just want to talk to their peers. They want to know, is New Orleans real? I want to start a business. They want to connect with people that are like-minded here in New Orleans. So we created Downtown Nolan Works, where we picked 20 ambassadors. We're going to be doing another 20 here in the next few months. And it's a video on why they're here, what inspires them about New Orleans. And then it's an open Q&A forum. It's almost like a blog for each ambassador, where people can ask questions, and we record their questions and answers on the site. Downtown TV, which we talked about earlier. We also have a very cool iPhone smart app that you guys can download, which has a downtown guide, shows you events, parking, and you can also report straight to the DUD issues you might be having downtown. It talks about best ways to get around downtown. So I'm going to skip over rollout. This is our last slide. Lessons learned is one thing that Naomi asked that I include in here, because I think a lot of times some of the best things you can do is ask someone who's done it before you, so you can avoid some of the mistakes or learn things that look right. Really take your time and research. I know that a year-long worth of research sounds daunting for some, but it really gave us this incredible insight and also gave us an opportunity for buy-in. And then don't work in a vacuum. Sometimes it's easier to do that, but then after you finish your project, you'll find a lot of people kind of a lot of pushback from people in the community because you didn't solicit their input. It's as simple as a phone call, just to give people a heads up that you're doing it. And just coordinate and collaborate. One thing I always tell people is piggyback on what's already going on. Like a great example recently in the Gambit's Mardi Gras issue, we partnered with the CDB. They were on our branding committee, and I think Kirk and Kirk, they've done multiple things that incorporated our brand to what they were doing, but they also put us in the insert during Mardi Gras talking about entrepreneurs and how that is a direct connection to tourism and why entrepreneurship matters in tourism. So I would think a couple years ago we wouldn't have seen something this big. So it's a great example of how partnerships can kind of help your brand go forward. And then make sure you own your creative assets and you protect them. I learned this lesson the hard way once upon a time.